Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah. And if you have had a toxic or frustrating person in your life, and then you talked to someone about it, my guess is they said something along the lines of, you just can't let that bother you. Um, and in life, there are some paradoxes that can be true at the same time. Like you could be angry at someone and still love them, and you could um, want to spend time with people and be tired and want to spend time at home, right? I mean, there's some paradoxes that you could miss someone and still be happy that you're away from them on a trip or something, right? So in life, there are some paradoxes that just are true, and that are both and statements. And this is one of them. But when I was early on my healing journey and people would say things like, well, you just can't let that bother you. It was like, like Bigfoot or something, like the anger of Bigfoot, like felt like it was coming out of my body. And I wanted to like go on attack or have like Bigfoot attack them. I obviously did not attack anyone. This is like just describing my anger. But the idea that like, "Oh, oh, well, why don't you have someone talk to you like that and see if it doesn't bother you? Or how about you worry about your kids and see if it doesn't bother you? Or how about you get left out and see if it doesn't bother you?" Right? And so if you have been angry about that, that's actually a good sign, because when we are apathetic and numb to those things, that is like the lowest level of energy. And apathy and like, whatever. Yeah, they talked to me ugly again. Yeah, they yelled at me again, whatever. Like that's actually a danger zone. Okay. That is not where you want to be. Healing is very difficult from that process. So as you move up in levels of energy, anger is actually a very appropriate level of energy. As you kind of, if you look at the levels of energy, you can kind of see it. It looks like a ladder. But like apathy, like whatever, that is very low. And you have to get through anger before you get to joy, happiness, and those sorts of things. Because if you put your hand on a hot stove, it's going to hurt, and it should. If you are talking to someone and they do you wrong and it hurts, it should. That's how you know if a person is safe to be around or not safe to be around. Okay. Um, and so I really want to have empathy and kindness. And that's why I told you my Bigfoot story, like Bigfoot anger. Because I was just like, you try not letting it bother you. Okay. Uh, And remember, I said these are paradoxes, like a both and statement. So, also at the same time, the more energy that you give to that frustration, the more connected you are to that person. Okay. So, I had a therapist one time, and he said something along the lines of, you've got to drop the rope. And if it's a tug of war, you've got to drop the rope. And it was, I think the Bigfoot anger came back out at that point, and I was just like, "Well, you drop the rope, like with your children." Rah, rah, rah. I was just like, I did not say these things out loud, by the way. It was just my internal chatter of just like, "Meh." So if you feel "meh," then I get it. It's very like mature term, isn't it? Meh. Okay, so anyway, the emotion of frustration and understanding, just anger and all that kind of stuff. As we talk about this process, again, this is an incredibly complicated subject. It's not like three tips for never being angry again when someone hurts you, right? Like it's not like these are grown up conversations, right? These are not third grade conversations. These are grown up conversations. And in this world, it's a both and. Okay. And when you are numb to people hurting you, you will move through the anger stage because it is a signal to your body. It's like if there was a snake at your foot and you were just like, poisonous rattlesnake, and you were just like, oh, it's fine, no problem, right? That you would need to move away. You're going to get bit. And if there's a toxic person in your life, you're like, it's fine, no problem. Like you're going to get bit. So we have to move into the anger stage of like, that is not okay. That is not right. They cannot do that to me, right? Like totally appropriate, totally okay, totally normal. And we want to keep moving up the ladder to not giving it all our emotional energy and this is a very like energetic term. Okay. So what I'm talking about is things like they do something, a toxic person does something, and you don't spend the next 3 days fuming over it. And every conversation you have with a friend or coworker is like, can you believe they did this? Can you believe they did that? I can't believe it. They're always like, they're just ruining my life. Da, 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 right? Like, and again, both and conversation. I get the anger. I'm not defending it. You are a human. Humans are supposed to be sad or recognize if, there's harm there, and toxic people are harmful. And at the same time, in this very complicated stage, you don't want to keep pulling on that tightrope. You can't do that to me. You can't this. You can't that, right? The answer is distance. The only answer is distance. Distance emotionally, distance physically, distance mentally. And I'm not talking about ignoring it. Okay? Snake, move. Not snake. Ah! Can you believe I saw a snake? I can't believe snakes exist. Why did God make snakes? Blah, 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 blah. Like, there's a snake. Snakes are terrible. But like, I've been through all these stages. This is like the least judgmental talk I can have because I did all these things. I did all these things wrong. And it was what kept me stuck and what didn't. What has kept others stuck and what hasn't. So lowest level of energy, apathy. Then you go through anger, and people talk about it as acceptance or letting go. And I struggled with this forever. There's actually a book called Letting Go, The Pathway to Surrender, that I owned for 5 or 6 years before I could read it, because the concept of letting go and surrender felt so dangerous to me after I felt like I had like let go and surrender earlier in my life. Like, oh, I'm just going to let God handle it, or I'm just going to be nice and it'll all work out. I'm just going to surrender. Like I had felt like I did a really unhealthy surrender in my early life. And so then I didn't know how to do that. And people did not explain it that well. And so I'm hoping I can explain it to you well, which is I want you to let go of the energy of it rather than build and stack on the energy of it. So there's a snake. Snakes suck. Okay, let go of the snake. I handled it. I got away from the snake. I did problem solve. It's not just like stay at the snake and just see if it wraps around my legs and bites my ankles. Like handle it, have the communication, set the boundary, send the email, whatever you need to do to keep yourself safe and create distance. And if you need to talk about it to emotionally process, I'm not talking about stuffing, but it could be a 15-minute conversation of just, I need to process, versus a 15-day conversation of, you won't believe this and you won't believe that, and you can't believe this and you can't believe that. Okay. And personally, from that book of letting go that I finally read, there was a course I took on surrender too. It was obviously a not a one and done topic for me. So I was just holding on to anything I could try to control it to keep myself safe. But it's kind of like recognizing the emotion behind it. Like, okay, I'm really angry. Okay, gonna let go of that anger. Okay. So there's an incident that happens, then you take action, and then you let go of the emotion behind it. Rather than, I keep thinking of the term, I don't know why I'm thinking of this. I've never used this terminology before, but like eating the anger. It's like eating it over and over. It's like I'm at lunch with my friends and I'm like talking about it. And then I set up a therapy appointment. I'm talking about it. And then I'm talking to my mother and I'm just eating the anger, eating the frustration, eating the blah, 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 blah. Okay. And then like, it's like emotionally gluttonous. Okay. And we just get like swollen from our anger and swollen from our sadness and swollen from like, and I've never used that thought before, terminology before. It's what's coming to me now. And okay, there was a bad situation. I took action and I'm going to let it go now. I'm going to deep breath. Okay. So we just want to minimize, not ignore, not stuff, but minimize the energy you give to the situation. That is the best explanation I have at this stage in my life of not tugging on that rope, tugging on that rope, tugging on that rope, right? I'm not saying ignore it. I am saying to take action, but don't keep feeding the energy of it because that will wreck your nervous system. That will wreck your nervous system. That will wreck your nervous system. That will wreck your nervous system because you're going snake, 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 anger, anger, snake, snake, anger, anger, snake, snake, right? And it 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 will wreck your nervous system. That's just the answer. Okay, and it'll keep you in fight and flight. You'll never feel safe. You'll always be waiting for the other shoe to drop. Okay. So this is a complicated subject, right? Because it's more energetically based than like act. I mean, it is action. You want to take action against the toxic person, but it's a very nuanced conversation, a very both and, a very grown up conversation with grown up solutions. But it is the way forward, and I hope it helps you on your journey to becoming toxic person proof.